While I'm sitting here listening to you guys talk, have you seen the movie Honest Thief with Liam Neeson? He's like a retired bomb specialist from the military, and then he goes on to start robbing banks. But have you seen?
I don't think I saw that one.
It's a good one.
You
You
should
should
put that on my
see it.
list.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminded me. Maybe you're like a Liam Neeson. Do you rob banks?
No.
Okay.
Welcome to the Eagle Network Podcast, where business networking meets success. Sponsored by Eagle Pest Solutions, your once-a-year pest control solution in Palm Coast, St. Augustine, and Ormond Beach. Safer, better, less intrusive pest control. Got bugs? No one likes bugs. Come soar with us. Call today at 386-445-7414 for a free inspection and quote. That's 386-445-7414. Now here's your host, Brad Ward.
Hey, it's Brad with the Eagle Network Podcast, and today we have a very special guest, very good friend of mine and my business partner. He has a lot of experience in pest control. He also was a 30-year member of the U.S. Army in the military, including 8 years active duty, 22 years reserves, did 2 tours in Iraq, was even a detonation specialist, which seems very dangerous. We'll talk to him about that here in a minute. But a great guy, a great friend, a great business partner, Lee Parsells.
How you doing today?
Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So we want to start back once upon a time, Lee.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Yes, exactly. So kind of your backstory. We like to get the backstory of where you grew up and then what got you interested in joining the military and also into pest control.
Okay, well, I'm originally from Daytona Beach. My father was a traveling project manager for General Electric, so we moved a lot. So he was involved in the Apollo project, so I lived down there for a little while. I grew up in Miami. I lived a long time there. And in Atlanta, Providence, Rhode Island, a few other places, back to Florida, West Palm Beach. And that's where I joined the military.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that was, I don't know, back in 1984, 85, something like that. And then I joined the military, went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then went to Fort Benning, Georgia for airborne training. Went to Fort Bragg for a short period of time, and then I volunteered to go to Europe. So I was over there. I stayed there for about 8 years.
8 years in Europe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I came back to Boston for a little bit, San Francisco for a little while, and then that's the first time I got out of the military, came back to Daytona Beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to bring up to the listeners, because you just heard him say a lot of different places, and it's funny. Lee and I has been really good friends for a long time, and anytime we're around other people and they bring up some location, I have a dumb look on my face because I've never been there. Lee has every time, and he's got a story to tell. Yeah. So that's one of the things, being in the military, I guess you were able to...
Mostly, yeah, because I like the everywhere man. You know, I've been to 49 states in, I don't know, 27, 28 countries, different countries or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the military, what initially drew you into the military or made you want to go into the U.S. Army?
I'm not sure exactly what started. My father was in the Army. My grandfather was in the Army. No, he was in the Navy. My great-grandfather was in the Army. So it's just like a family tradition. It's just something I always knew I was going to do ever since I was a little kid.
Comment from the audience. So you really had no choice, is what you're saying.
Right. Right. Kind of a legacy thing. Yeah.
But I know when we had your retirement party, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about the party was you had some of your old military buddies there, the stories you guys were telling.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about the fighting and stuff. It was about the stories, the good times they had.
Oh, yeah. We always had good times. We did, a lot of traveling together. And, it did some crazy stories. Some I couldn't discuss. Yeah.
Sorry, listeners. So the military detonation specialists. Can you just briefly talk a little bit about that? And
Yeah, that was when I first joined the military. I wanted to go airborne. I wanted to jump out of airplanes, so I didn't care what I did. And they said, well, we're going to make you a demolition specialist with the Corps of Engineers. So I did that for about 15 years, close to 15 years. So we were just blowing things up, blowing up bridges, blowing up buildings, blowing up. It was just, when we had nothing to do, we'd take stuff out of the junkyard and blow it up. And if you go to, I was in Europe for a long time, and there's still junkyards full of World War II stuff over there. We dragged that old Army tanks and stuff out of there and blow them up. Yeah,
That sounds fantastic.
a lot of math involved. That's what I enjoyed about it the most. Was a lot of because you had to get the explosions just right. We had contests of who can cut steel cleanly, and it's a lot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it'd be a lot of math involved in that.
Yeah, that maybe it's the kid in me, but that sounds like fun.
It was fun.
That sounds like fun. But the practicality of it, maybe not so much fun as far as
the practicality, the practicality being with the engineers, we did other things too, is, like construction. Like I helped build small schools in Panama in the jungles. And there was some people in some little towns in Europe that had their bridges washed out. We could put up a bridge in 8 hours and they're still there today. They just paved right over them.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Sometimes we just build bridges in the middle of nowhere just to blow them up. Yeah.
Dude, while I'm sitting here listening to you guys talk, have you seen the movie Honest Thief with Liam Neeson? He's like a retired bomb specialist from the military, and then he goes on just to start robbing banks. But have you seen?
I don't think I saw that one.
It's a good one.
I
You
gotta put
should
that on
see
my
it.
list.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminded me. Maybe you're like a Liam Neeson. Do you rob banks?
No.
Okay.
So if you need a safe blown up, I can.
Yeah, plead the fifth. Plead the fifth. So transitioning to pest control. How'd you originally get into pest control?
Well, the first time I got out of the military, I think it was 95, I think it was, 94, 95. Drove down here from San Francisco. I needed a car. And at the time, Sears had a termite and pest control company. And they said, yeah, you come work for us, we'll give you a vehicle. And that's where it all started. I started in sales. They asked me to do termite inspections, and I found that interesting because termites are just ingenious little engineers, basically.
Right.
Basically. So I got really interested in that. That's how I got started.
Okay, awesome. Termites are also destructive engineers.
Oh, yeah. Worse,
Very destructive.
worse than hurricanes, fires, tornadoes, yeah. The money, because one of my jobs was claim specialist for termite damage.
Right.
And the amount of money that is spent on termite damage every year is astronomical.
Yeah, if I remember right, there's more termite damage in a typical year than water, fire, wind damage combined in a typical year.
Yeah.
Just kind of tells you how much there is actually. So
Yeah.
I'm curious now, just listening. Tell me more. Tell the audience more about that. I know this is super obvious to you guys in your field, but that's surprising. Can you speak more to that?
Well, the thing is, termites go unnoticed for years, and by the time you find the damage, it's usually 6-7 years. They could take out 8-9 feet of wall. They do. The termites we have in Florida most prominently is the eastern subterranean termite, and they could do a foot of damage every 6 months.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Now there's some more destructive ones that are located more like your seaport areas, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami. They could do a foot a month. And then we have some like St. Augustine, the drywood termites. They're a lot slower. They do a foot in maybe 5 years. Wow. But the ones we mostly deal with is eastern subterraneans. Are the ones everywhere in Florida.
Right, and what he talked about is they eat the inside of the wood first, so they're not exposed to where you're able to see them generally. And especially bathrooms and kitchens where they can do a lot of damage over time, and then it can cost a lot of money to repair and replace all that in a bathroom or a kitchen. So it definitely can add up. Very destructive. what Lee said about the drywood termites, there's not very many of them in a colony. I mean, there's a huge difference between Eastern Subterranean and drywood, the numbers in a colony. And that's partly why it takes drywood termites a long time to do any significant damage, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're mostly found in antique, very, very dry wood, hence the name. Mostly antique wood. That's why you see a lot of them in St. Augustine. The only time I see them in Palm Coast is when someone goes up there, buys antique furniture, and brings it back.
Right. So you started with Sears. So Chuck Steinmetz, who for us is a legend in the pest control industry. He's got a building named after him.
Yeah.
Which means he donated some money to the University of Florida entomology department. But so you started doing once a year right away.
Yeah, Chuck Steinmetz introduced me to once a year pest control. It was a great plan. I thought it was a genius plan because you just do a thorough treatment with the best products once a year, and then you just go back as needed, which is very rarely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Sears got bought out by another company, Terminix. I didn't want to work for Terminix, so I went with Middleton, which was also a Chuck Steinmetz company. Right. And the same thing, did the once a year pest control, termite treatments. Yeah. And
that's where I met Lee.
Yeah.
Was at Middleton when I came down, moved down in 2008, and Lee worked there. And so both of us got our start in once a year pest control. And then we both, by default, basically started doing quarterly once a certain company bought Middleton. And then we did quarterly for another company as well that sold out to actually a European company. Talk a little bit about the difference between once a year and quarterly, and why once a year, in our opinion, in Eagle Pest Solutions' opinion, is a much better program for the customer.
Well, for one reason, it's less intrusive. It's once a year, and that's it. One and done. Unless a problem arises, like September, October, you have palmetto bugs on the rise and stuff. But the quarterly, two things I didn't like about quarterly is, by law, certain products can only be used certain times a year. So for quarterly treatment, you got to use a very low-grade product to do it 4 times a year. And it only lasts, mostly it lasts about 45, 50 days. The rest of the 45 days is luck, pretty much. So the stuff we use, we can't do 4 times a year. And a lot of people don't know if the technician was actually there. They just get billed for it. And it happens a lot in the quarterly service industry.
Right.
Our service, the customer, 90% of the time has to be home. They're going to call you, whatever. We're going to work with their schedule, what day you're going to be available, and we get together with the customer on site and take care of whatever problems they have. So they always know. Most of the time they're there. We have a few that live up north, and they trust us enough to give us access to the house. But most of the time, customers are always involved with the process.
Right. And so basically, in our opinion, it's safer, better, less intrusive than quarterly. And there's some really good quarterly pest control companies, but the philosophy is totally different for sure. And customers, and occasionally most customers go with it. They see the benefits of it from the get-go. Some say we'll give it a year. 90% of them will say after that year, hey, it works. You're right. We use the best products that last the longest. In fact, our product costs, and we know this because, again, we've done once a year and we've done quarterly, because it's the best products that last the longest. We do the inside every year. We don't forget about it, like somehow products last forever inside. Our product cost is more than a quarterly company's for a year. A lot of people think, really? Yeah.
It is,
really?
Yeah, because they're
really
better products.
So that's one thing. It's very thorough treatment every year. We're also, Eagle Pest is locally owned. Lee is veteran owned, one of the 2 owners. Yours truly, the other one. But being local, the quickness and the quality of the service call and the personal touch, especially when the owners themselves are out and about and involved and meeting with the customers. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, with any pest control company or any service industry, it comes down to the technician. You have to trust your technician, and that's a big deal. And I've had some of my customers I've had since the beginning. Since I have a couple of customers from Sears, a few from Middleton, a couple, some they just it doesn't matter with the company. They're just going to follow me.
Yeah.
And I love those relationships. I've made a lot of great friends, more than just customers to me. That I see on a regular basis, play golf with. The relationship thing is the part I enjoy the most about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, do you get that? So you guys work after Middleton was bought out by a larger company.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get that same type of relationship as opposed to like a local company?
No. You're talking about being in the bigger company?
Yeah.
No.
Do you have that same relationship with the customer and all that?
Because I've been through maybe two or three buyouts. I can't remember, but the bigger the company gets, like the last one got bought out by a company in Sweden that Brad and I worked with, and it's from their perspective, it's not so much customer relationship as bottom line numbers, and you're rushed to get those numbers every day, so you can't spend as much time with the customers as you want to.
And I can just chime in there. In that company, we don't mention names, but we actually are getting a lot of business from people letting us know that company things are different than it used to be, or a particular smaller company that the company out of Jacksonville bought, that things have changed, not for the better. The customer service isn't what it was. And so they reach out to a local company like Eagle Pest Solutions because they are used to, and that's what they want. It definitely changes. It definitely changed. And we still have friends with that company this last time, for sure, including friends we golf with occasionally. There's a pattern there, golf, Thaddeus.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think it's the nature of the beast that these bigger companies, or if they're owned by private investment companies, that it's the numbers, and it doesn't mean they don't mean well, but they kind of lose that personal touch. And for most people, that's what they want, is a personal touch, and to be taken care of the right way, for sure. But Lee, back to your experience in pest control. So you decided with myself to do our own thing and start Eagle Pest Solutions. And so basically in 2019.
Right. Late 2019, yes.
Could you just talk a little bit about that? Because I'm sure there's other people out there that maybe they want to start their own business of some sort, but maybe they're scared, they're not sure. They've never done their own thing. Could you talk a little bit about what we went through as far as research and things we did to be prepared?
Well, one thing I could say about someone that's apprehensive about starting their own business, and I was one of them, just do it. I mean, I now that we're on the other side of the fence, I'd say I should have done this a long time ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I've been licensed by the state since 2009. And I waited 10 years to go to do our own things. So, yeah, just do it, is for one thing. Because we had a great initial response, and then COVID hit. That was a little pushback, but we managed to get through that with the help of the community, basically.
Networking
was
big.
Yeah, networking was big. Social media was real big. Those are our two biggest draws right there.
Definitely. And like he was saying, networking that first year, because of COVID, made it very difficult to be a brand new company and brand ourselves. And networking got us 2/3 of our business that first year. We basically survived because of networking. So we're both very thankful. And even today, like Lee was saying, networking, social media, and Google are the big three for us. we're getting a lot more happy customer referrals as well. So that's kind of became the fourth thing where we get a lot of customers from. But it's great that you mentioned networking. And I know, in Eagle Pest Solutions, I'm over the sales and networking. You're the service, the bug expert, guru, champion, world champion. Lee should be an entomologist with all his knowledge, 29 years. And I know bugs, like I've told you before, Thaddeus. I know bugs, but nothing like Lee. I know the products a little bit, but Lee knows them a lot. He tests products. We had a mosquito. Can you talk about that and testing the product for 9 months before you decided that we should use it because he wanted to make sure it worked?
Oh yeah, the Scion product is I got it. I keep in touch with other service managers around, and they're telling me about new products they tried, how it works. So we tried a new product that works great for mosquitoes and spiders, and you don't have to do it as often. So it's a quarterly service. I use a backpack power sprayer, a gas powered sprayer, and and I do that on a quarterly basis, and I've had great luck with it so far. I've been using it for about a year now, but I did test it for almost a year before that, just to make sure it was it would work with our program, and the quarterly service brings down the price a little bit instead of doing it monthly. So.
Yeah, it was a big thing. A couple things that shows that Eagle Pest and Lee, we don't just believe what's said. He tests the products and make sure it works before we use it and go to the customer. That way we know 100% that it does work. It definitely brought down the cost of mosquito when you had to go out monthly. Think about that compared to now we can go out quarterly. Just 4 times instead of 12 in a year, brought it down where the average person, it's affordable now. Before, it really wasn't.
Yeah.
It really wasn't because of so much labor and so much time and product. So we really pushed this last year, mosquito, and we've gotten a lot more mosquito customers because it's such a greater value now to the customer. So, and that goes back to Lee and testing the product. He tested some other mosquito products that did not work, by the way, before that.
Yeah.
And we did not use. So we're always looking for what's best for the customer. Networking. So back to the networking. So people that know me know that I love networking and that I'm in a few different types of networking groups in both St. Augustine and Palm Coast. You are now in BNI Wealth,
right,
here in Palm Coast, and I'm in BNI Moneymakers in St. Augustine. I'm also in RDC. I'm in Professional Women of Flagler County.
You can be whatever you want to be, Brad.
I was getting ready to say I always take some heat for that, but there are 5 or 6 guys in it. Kurt Keller, the radio guy's in it.
There you go.
But it is mainly women, but it's good. I think myself and Eagle Pest to support the Professional Women of Flagler County
Absolutely
is a great thing. And also, there's a lot of jokes that can be made at my expense for it. But also, we're in Tiger Bay Club, have been in other groups as well. So we try to network and get to know and help other businesses. And Lee is in BNI Wealth, and I know he's making some great connections there. He just became a member very recently.
Yeah, it's only been open, I think, a month. I think it's not even official yet. I think the official is next week or 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
Initial opening.
I gotta say though, you guys were blessed. Here's why. Because I feel like any business that came through COVID and survived, it's like trial by fire, so to speak. And so you have this foundation where you started in the hardest way, so to speak, of going out there and, getting the system going during COVID, right? And so your foundation was really based largely on networking. Absolutely. And that just continues to accelerate your business.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that first year, they say the first 2 years are tough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they are, and I assume that
and COVID.
that's what I get to with COVID,
Yeah.
maybe even twice as tough, but we made it through it, and we have great customers. We have great business partners. Like Lee said, he's had, I don't know how many customers that have followed him from this company, that company. And the bottom line, what really, the straw that broke the camel's back, is that the saying? Was when Lee was part of, I think, the third buyout, my second buyout, and we agreed to give it a shot, but things changed, not for the better. That was it. And finally, that's when we got together and started Eagle Pest Solutions. That way, guess what? There's no buyout coming.
Yeah.
Changing things. So, and Lee, one thing I can say about Lee, even though his expertise is definitely in pest control bugs and products, people love Lee. People love Lee. We get compliments all the time on Lee and on Matthew, our technician Matthew, because they get the job done. They're good people. They care about the customer. And that's part of why our business works. You know, we do what we say we're going to do. We will do whatever we have to do to take care of the customer. So, but going back to what you said, yeah, networking, we're built on networking. We've figured out a lot of things that don't work.
Yeah.
For sure, in our almost 5 years in business. But those are learning experiences. Those are things as we keep growing, and, you know, we do business in St. Augustine, Palm Coast, Ormond Beach. We know how to maybe grow at a better and more efficient rate because we're not doing some of those mistakes we made, for sure. We're focused on what we're good at.
Mm-hmm.
You said that earlier, actually it was Lee was talking about how you've had customers follow you from these different companies, stuff like that. That's just a testament to the fact that people are buying because they like you, you know. And I think some of that gets lost when you're talking about a larger company.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have the owner here in the community, which I think pest control, I automatically think Brad. And Brad's always out there. And when somebody's asking for pest control, like on Facebook, Eagle Pest, Eagle Pest, Eagle
Right.
Pest. Eagle.
Right.
And that's just a testament to the fact that he's well liked in this community, as is you and Matt. Is it right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's huge. And for like a new business, you guys were talking about that, a new business. Is that what you would tell them to push as far as starting up, to make sure that they have those proper relationships in place?
It would help to start with the proper relationship, but the big key would be to develop those relationships. So that's what we had to do.
Absolutely. Relationships, get to know people, like people, trust people, and it goes both ways. Whether it's whether we're referred a lot by business partners, but a lot by current customers. We're blessed with great customers that we take care of, and they're kind enough to refer us, whether it's in person to somebody or on social media. But yeah, to me and Lee, I believe it's all about relationships, taking care of the customer and doing what's right for them.
Right, about the customer. That really hit home last week when the hurricane hit. I couldn't tell you how many texts I got from customers. You okay? Everything okay? How'd you make out? I thought that was pretty impressive.
Definitely.
I appreciated that.
Yeah. Is there any other comments on networking or business you want to share with the listeners?
Well, the only thing I want to share is when I going way back to where he's talking about once a year pest control. A lot of people questions that come up is, you must be using some pretty powerful stuff to last a year, and it's not powerful stuff. It's very, very mild. It's some of the safest products that you can buy. It's just they're very efficient. Very the way they're mixed, the way they're used. Most of the products I use were developed years ago by through veterinary services for dogs and cats and flea control, and from there it moved to termite control and into pest control. And it's very, I mean, it's so safe that they couldn't even I don't want to say it like that, but they, every chemical they test on rats. They couldn't even measure the lethal dose when treating, feeding it to rats. That's how safe it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that's good
And
information.
it's all biology. It works on the biology of a bug which the biology that we don't have.
Right.
So that's why it doesn't affect us at all.
So I want to thank Lee. Thanks for being on.
Oh, it's a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much. And the Eagle Network podcast, thanks all the listeners for tuning in. Lee has had a great life, 30 years total in the Army, 29 years pest experience, the service and operations manager for Eagle Pest Solutions. I can tell you this, I don't know what I would have been able to do without you.
Likewise. You do good what you do. I try to do good what I do.
I'll slip you a 20 after. I'll slip you a 20. Next podcast, we're going to have Vincent Amore with Tresco Bank. Vincent Amore with Tresco Bank, great friend of mine. We golf together as well. There's a pattern, that is. You're going to have to start golfing maybe. But Vinny is a great person. Great networker. You talk about being everywhere. That should be a very entertaining podcast. So I hope you tune in to the next podcast. Until then, the Eagle Network podcast. I'm Brad. Thank you for tuning in.